Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to allow another moment for a few more people to join. If you would like, you can introduce yourself in the chat, your name, and what business industry you are in, and then we'll get started. And then while you're doing that, welcome. My name is Taya Brown. I am the administrative coordinator here at the Temple SBDC. The Temple SBDC helps small businesses start, grow, and succeed. We do this through our no-cost and training programs like you're joining us for today. The Temple SBDC is a part of a nationally accredited network with over 1,000 SBDC centers across the United States. You have joined us for how to drive more sales in 2025. All attendees will receive a copy of the recording. Our presenter today is Thomas Hammonds. He has a dynamic background and results-driven background in sales and management executive with over 18 years of experience in medical device and pharmaceutical industry. A solutions-oriented leader, he excels in proving the vision, strategy, and resources necessary to drive high-performing direct reports and cross-functional sales teams. Now I'll turn over the floor to Thomas.
All right, Taya, thank you so very much for that introduction. Man, you make me sound more important than I really am. So thank you for that. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, as Taya mentioned, my name is Thomas Hammonds. I am currently sales director for Boston Scientific in the deep brain stimulation division. I lead a team spanning throughout the entire Northeast. And we support my team supports a brain surgery procedure for Parkinson's and essential tremor patients. So our clients are functional neurosurgeons, movement disorder neurologists, community neurologists, and all between. So again, thank you guys for allowing me to join your call today. And hopefully someone can take a few nuggets from this talk and apply it to their respective business. So we'll kind of get started. This talk is going to be more like a sales strategy and then collaborating with marketing to drive sales, right? And kind of knowing the process of collaborating and understanding what a sales strategy truly is. All right. So just a little bit of background about where I've been. Started my career right out of college, after undergrad with Pfizer in the pharmaceutical division. We were the neuroscience division, and after Pfizer, spent a few years there, transferred into medical device sales, where I was an orthopedic trauma representative for about 7 or 8 years with DePuy Synthes, which was an insane lifestyle, literally being on call 24/7, 365 for 7 years was a grind. So I knew I wanted to go back and get my MBA, and there was just no way to do that working for a trauma company, being on call all the time and actually getting called. And went to go work for Medtronic in their deep brain stimulation division, spent some time there, got my MBA at Temple. After started my own medical device distribution company, RenovaMed, where we partnered with 3 companies to sell and distribute their products throughout Eastern PA and Jersey. After that, went to go work for Stryker back in trauma in a leadership role, and Boston Scientific now, leading their Northeast DBS team. All right, so we'll jump right into it. And Taya, feel free to interrupt if anyone has any questions at any time, and I'll be more than happy to answer. I want to kind of keep this interactive versus me just talking at everyone. So, when you think about increasing sales, right, it's all fundamental. When you look at what it fundamentally takes to increase sales, one of the things that I've been super blessed with, and I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse to tell you the truth, is I've had the opportunity to take over underperforming teams and turn those teams around. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today are the processes that I used when looking at these teams and getting these teams back to award-winning status. So it all starts with sales strategy, right? And more or less, this is just your blueprint, your roadmap for sales activities, right? Um, defining your goals and objectives, understanding your target audience, crafting a compelling value proposition, and we'll get into all these things in a little more depth as we go on. Developing a sales process, building a sales team, and monitoring and measuring performance. And I added persistence on the end, and we can talk a little bit about that as well and how important that is to your overall sales strategy. And I've always felt like um, without a well thought out and planned sales strategy, um, you know, I just feel like it's so vital and instrumental to the success of your sales and building a sales team in general. So we'll kind of dig a little deeper into the different components of a sales strategy. So it all starts with goal setting, right? In sales, when you're building a sales team or when you have a sales team, a sure way to lose your team is in the goal settings um, stage, right? If your goals and expectations of your sales team are unreasonable or unattainable, a good salesperson, your good people are going to leave, right? Because a primary driver for any good sales representative, one of the primary drivers is their commission. A lot of the times that's why they're in sales. So if the goals and expectations are unattainable, more than likely that's going to negatively impact their commissions. And good salespeople are driven by commissions and making money, and they will eventually look for more opportunities. And then your KPIs, right? Your key performance measures is how you're tracking your team's success and what are you using to track that success. All right, identifying your target audience. And I can't express to you how important this is. Um, you can have an amazing product or service, but if you don't identify who you want to sell that product or service to, it's like throwing darts, right? Throwing darts in the dark, right? You have no idea if the customer wants or needs your product, and it's a major waste of time if you don't spend time with the right customers or with the right target audience. Listening is so important. So many times salespeople, we want to talk and we never want to really listen to what the customer needs. And I'm a believer in um, if you don't know a customer's pain points and their needs, you cannot sell them anything, right? And they will have no interest in what you're selling if you can't collaborate with them and understand what their needs are in their respective businesses. Creating your value proposition. And that's basically, who you are and what are you offering your customers that separate you from the competition, right? Um, I've taken this from an entrepreneur brainstorming session I was a part of. Um, we'll get down to it. Is the best products and services, they save people time, money, and or make their lives a little easier, right? So your value proposition should be somewhat based around those things, right? And also what makes your product or service superior to the competition. Um, know the competition well, but never bash the competition, right? I've kind of prided myself on that my entire career. When I worked in trauma, it's a super competitive business. I mean, there were probably, 5 or 6 big trauma companies and then a bunch of small companies in between. And you never bash your competition. You sell what you have and you never hesitate to sell the competitive advantages that you have and try your best not to bash the competition. It's a sure shot way to lose credibility with your customers. And I just think that's so important. Do we have any questions thus far?
No questions at the moment.
Okay, perfect. Um, creating your sales process. It's kind of like again your roadmap for converting business, converting leads into customers, and ultimately closing the deal. Two examples of what your sales process could be: consultative selling. It's basically just a technique where sales reps focus on understanding the customer needs and act as an advisor or consultant throughout the sales process with their customer. And also there's solution-based selling, where your reps focus on the customer needs and offer tailor-made solutions specifically for that need of the customer, and not selling a specific product, but finding out what their customer needs and then basing the sale around that. Building a strong sales team. It's imperative that you recruit and train sales representatives, with a good skill set and knowledge. However, I also am a believer in that the person doesn't necessarily have to have all the experience, but if they have certain skills, and they're hardworking and they're ethical, and you know that this is someone who's going to put in work to improve their skills, I am a believer in working with those candidates as well. One thing that I try to do in my interview process is I ask my candidates to tell me a good story, right? And it can be about anything. And this is a total off the cuff question. Um, and I like to call it story selling, because a good storyteller is an essential part of being a good salesperson, right? If you can draw me in, get me interested in the story, and then close it out at the end, however you may, those are skills that are necessary for a good salesperson to be successful. And on top of that, I think just provide your team with the necessary tools and resources that they need to go out and perform their jobs and effectively win. Measuring performance. I look at this as like coaching. You establish your metrics to monitor performance against their key performance measures, and you coach them on what you coach your salespeople, your sales team, on what to improve on, but you must congratulate them on their accomplishments, right? I feel like you have to have a fine balance there of coaching, correcting, and then also congratulating. So we talked about persistence, and why is it so important in sales? And the statistics are there. You look at what the average conversion rate is from cold calling, 2%. And depending on the industry, it could take 5 to 18 calls with a customer to close the deal, get a commitment for a sale, or even just to get you close to a sale. And I can tell you there, I had a front row seat to this in my first job with Pfizer right out of college, right? There were 4 of us in a territory, in a very small territory, and there were 4 different sales reps from different divisions, but we all collaborated and cross-sold one product, right? So our strategy was for one of us to see a doctor every day in our territory and deliver the same exact message, right? That's the power of persistence and repetitiveness in sales. And, you think about, over time, those clinicians, those doctors that we called on would eventually repeat our sales messages back to us. And that's when you're like, got them on the hook, right? So I can't tell you how important persistence is. And I'll tell you guys another short story on persistence, on how I ended up getting, my first job with Pfizer. And I'll try to make this story short. I'm right out of undergrad. I am living in Charlotte, North Carolina. I go through an entire interview process with Pfizer, and I have my final interview, and it's in Dulles, right? Right outside of DC. So I board a plane. It's probably 5 o'clock in the evening. My interview's the next day in Dulles. So I'm on the plane. It rarely ever snows in Charlotte, right? Just my luck, it's snowing that day. And we end up having to deplane because, of course, the snow, and all flights were canceled. And my interview is at 9 o'clock the next morning in DC. And I'm like, man, I have to take full advantage of this opportunity. There's no way I'm going to miss this. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to tough it out. And at the time, I was driving a little 1987 Honda Prelude. And I'm and I'm like, you know what? I am not going to miss this opportunity. I'm going to see this through. This is my chance. And hopped in my 1987 Honda Prelude and hit the road from the airport to Washington, D.C. And somewhere around like Southern Virginia, the Prelude just wouldn't go anymore. The snow was bad. The roads were really bad. I had to pull over, get a hotel in the middle of the night. Woke up at 5 o'clock the next morning. Thank goodness the roads were a little better, and continued my drive to Dulles. And I get there, and the corporate offices, Pfizer's corporate offices, regional offices, were closed. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I drive through the night, through the snow, risk my life, and I get here and there's no one here, because there's probably like, a foot and a half of snow on the ground, maybe 2 feet. And I call up the person that was helping me out through the process, that kind of scheduled my flight for me and all of that. And she goes, I told her what happened. She goes, Thomas, are you crazy? She goes, the offices are closed. Like, no one's there. Let me call Alan. Alan was the regional sales director at the time for Pfizer. And she called Alan. Alan was this, super, super nice guy from Texas, strong Southern Texas accent. He got in his truck, big pickup truck, came over to the offices, let me in. We sit down and we talk. And he goes, dude, tell me you didn't drive from Charlotte to Virginia last night through the snow. I said, absolutely, I did. He goes, why? I said, because I didn't want to miss this opportunity. I knew that this is the job that I wanted. This is the career path I wanted. And I was not going to miss the opportunity to be here for the interview. And he goes, wow. He goes, there's no need for us to even interview. He goes, like, the fact that you were that persistent and that determined, that you drove through the night to get here through the snow, you're the kind of person that I need on my team. Don't even need to interview you. You have the job. And I was like, wow. So that was like, one of my early persistent stories that I kind of like to share with everyone. And I'm super proud of that, because it got me my start in the industry that I love so much. All right. So we'll look at marketing and sales, right? Um, you know, Sales and marketing, it has to be a harmonious relationship. They need each other, they thrive off of each other. And the partnership is vital to the success of a business. And I know a lot of small businesses may not have a quote unquote marketing department, right? But a lot of the roles and things that marketing can do could be done by someone within the business, if you know what you're doing and put together a plan. All right. So there's two different types of marketing, right? Primarily, there's upstream and downstream marketing. So upstream marketing, um, in many times, is the earlier stages of marketing before product is available to the customer, right? Like it's the market research, it's product development, it's defining your targets and developing marketing strategies, right? And we talked earlier about your value proposition and all of those things, and that links, to the upstream marketing side, because you work with your marketing team to kind of understand these things, and who you're targeting, all to sell your product. So that collaboration and that partnership is vital. And then there's also downstream marketing, right? And that focuses on the latter stages of the product, and that's when you have the product ready to put in the customer's hands, right? Um, you know, I can speak to both of these from a very recent experience. My division of Boston Scientific, we just launched a new lead that we put in the brain for DBS surgery, and it's groundbreaking. It's unlike anything else that's on the market. Um, you know, Significantly superior to the current products by our other two competitors. And I was blessed enough to work with our marketing team on the upstream side before the product was released. Um, testing the field, working with some of our clinicians, asking questions, some of our key opinion leaders on what they thought, how would they use the product, what would their interest level be in using the product, where would they position it, all of these things, right? And there was a lot of interest there, which I'm certain that led to us moving forward to developing the product. And then once the product was developed and ready for sale, let's see, maybe a month ago, right? And that's when the downstream part comes in that my team and I play a role in also. So we're working with our customers, we're selling, distributing this product, we're promoting it. We're using our relationships with our customers to get into certain university teaching hospitals. And it's it was exciting to be a part of the upstream and downstream side of launching this new product that we're very excited about. All right. So why is marketing important to small businesses? And again, depending on the size of your business, you're probably like, I don't even have a marketing department, but anyone can wear a marketing hat, right? So increasing awareness, customer acquisition, brand building, competitive advantage, revenue growth, customer retention. And I just feel like the collaboration between sales and marketing is so important. And then the different types of marketing. We have digital marketing, which is primarily social media, search engine optimizations, SEOs, email marketing, content marketing, blogs, videos, etc. Then you have your traditional marketing, which may consist of print and broadcast advertising, maybe some direct mail, billboards, outdoors advertising, and then the relationship marketing, loyalty programs, personalized communication, then experimental marketing, where you have events, demonstrations, interactive displays, and then word of mouth marketing. And we kind of all know what that is. So those are, just the different types of marketing. And again, the relationship between marketing and sales is super important, and have to work together for the success of a business. And I mean, depending on the size of the business, a salesperson could also be your marketing person, right? It's just wearing a couple of different hats. So again, I want to thank you all for allowing me to present on your call today. I appreciate it. I'm humbled by it. Mr. Mark Tucker invited me to speak. He's one of my mentors here in Philadelphia, someone that I constantly lean on for business talks, and he has a background in sales, so it's right up our alley. And we both are basketball junkies, so we share that in common also. So Mr. Tucker, thank you for inviting me, and thank you all for allowing me to jump on and talk on your call. Here's my contact information. If anyone has any questions or want to reach out about anything, I'd be more than happy to help you out on some of the things that we talked about today, or if you have any questions in general about sales or marketing, I would love to work with you and help you out. Thank you.
Hey, Thomas, this is Mark Tucker. I just wanted to tell everyone how much we appreciate you spending some time with us, our entrepreneurs and all the individuals that are participating in this webinar. But I also want to ask you, I know you had stepped into the entrepreneurial world with your scrub business. And could you share a little bit about that business journey that you had with your scrub and your machines, and what you did and how you did it and how you fared, and when you decided to downsize and sell that business? A little bit about that would be
absolutely
appreciated. Thank you.
So this was I just finished my MBA at Temple, and every a lot of MBA's ambitions are to start their own business, and I saw an opportunity for me to start. And I'd been in DBS at that point for maybe 8 years, and I'm like, man, I need to change. I need to work for myself. I need to jump out and take the entrepreneurial route. And I did. I started a company called RenovaMed USA, and we were a medical distributor. We partnered with 3 different companies. We partnered with a company called Ostesign, which is a 3D printed cranioplasty company based out of Sweden. And they basically sold like what's called peak polyether ether ketone 3D printed cranioplasty implant. So when patients had brain surgery and had to remove part of the skull, they made a 3D printed version of the part of the skull that was removed. So I was excited to partner with them because they had differentiating technology from the other few companies that were out in the market. Then we partnered with a company called Rep Scrubs based out of Florida, who are, if you go into I'll probably say they're about in 70% of all hospitals now. And they made a disposable scrubs for vendors coming in and out of a hospital. And their value proposition was to a hospital was that, you have reps that are coming in and out of a hospital wearing scrubs from the outside into your OR. That significantly increases your chances for infection. You have reps that are taking your scrubs from the hospital and leaving, and eventually you have to replace those scrubs. And to a big hospital system, that's a massive cost, right? So you get rid of that aspect of it. And the third part of their value proposition was you can track now whoever is in your hospital at all times from a vendor perspective, right? Because every time they take a set of scrubs from the machine, it's tracked and it goes into this reporting system, and at all times who's in your hospital. So that was their value proposition. Man, was it effective. So your hospitals would say, so you can save me money, right? You can help decrease my infection rates, right? And you can provide me data on who's in my hospital from what vendors are in my hospitals at all times. And it was like a no-brainer. And the hospital doesn't pay for the program. The reps have to pay for the program, right? So in order for them to do business at the hospital, they have to buy those scrubs daily to come into the hospital. So it was an amazing business strategy, and we were super successful. My team, we were all Eastern PA and South Jersey, well, North and South Jersey. And at the time I left, we were probably in 25 hospitals, maybe 15 to 20 hospitals in the area. And we got to a point to where the third company that I represented was a small orthopedic company that sold foot and ankle implants, right? So the foot and ankle implants were definitely in my orthopedic trauma wheelhouse. The cranioplasty implant was in my kind of ortho wheelhouse, but it was more skull based. And then the Rep Scrubs opportunity just kind of came out of nowhere, but it worked because I had relationships in all of the hospitals in the area just from my background in sales, medical sales in the area. So I ended up exiting my distributorship, Mr. Tucker, because 2 of the companies that I was representing in the distributorship were positioning themselves to be acquired, which would make my contract with those companies null and void, right? It wouldn't exist anymore. And if you know anything about being a medical distributor, especially for when you're representing small companies, is that, man, it can take you forever to get your products approved and used at the hospital, more so than it would for me as now a regional director for Boston Scientific to walk into a hospital, right? Because it's a big company. It's well known. A lot of the times we already have contracts because we have, 10 or 12 different divisions, and we're a $16 billion company, right? So when you're a small company, you don't have any of that leverage, right? So it takes forever. And some of the products took me over a year and a half to get approved for usage in the hospital. So when I knew that 2 of the companies were being positioned to be acquired, that's when I decided that I probably needed to step down from my distributorship. And I went to take a leadership role back in orthopedic trauma with Stryker.
Thanks, Thomas, for that story. It does look like you have some additional questions that are maybe floating out there in the chat box. So,
Okay. Tanya, do you want to
Yes,
handle those?
well, anyone else has questions, you can post them in the Q&A chat box. And then there also is a survey link for questions for this webinar. We do ask for your feedback and do value it. And it is also required by our funders. That way we can continue to provide no-cost webinars like today. And then we do have 2 questions at the moment. First question is, what are the elements of a good marketing sales story?
The good, that's a good one. A good marketing or sales story, and I'm assuming that you're talking about when during my interview process, I always ask the candidate to just tell me a good story. And truthfully, it doesn't have to be a story about sales or marketing. I prefer it not be. I just need to know that that person can think of a story, right? They can set the story up, right? And these are all elements that are so important to sales, right? They can set the story up. They can tell me the characters in the story. They can, start to build a storyline, get to the peak of the story, whatever that may be, and then close it out at the end with whatever, how the story ended, right? And I just feel like when someone can concisely tell you a random story on the spot, right? And this isn't an interview process, when they're more than likely, or more times than not, they're nervous, right? So if you can get through all of that and just tell me a really good random story, and I notice that you use some of those things throughout the story, then I look at that person, I can work with that person, right? I can coach them. I can teach them the things that they need to learn, to be a good sales rep. But those are intangible things that you just can't teach, right? You can't teach the storytelling aspect of it. And again, that's why I feel like it's so important to being a good sales rep, is to be able to tell your story. Matter of fact, I brought that kind of to Boston Scientific, and we've incorporated that into our training, and we call it the art of story selling, right? So it's, you have to be able to tell your story, because at the end of the day, when you're selling a product to a customer, that's all it is, right? It's telling that customer story. So I hope that answered your question.
The next question is, do you have any recommendations for B2B sales techniques or strategies, such as books, programs, etc., for unexperienced salespeople looking for training skills?
Looking for training skills. Oh man, that's a good one.
Excuse me, skills training.
For skills training. Wow, let me think of that one. Whoever asked that question, please take my email address, because I can probably go to my bookshelf right now and pick out about 3 or 4 good ones. Um, However, it's hard for me to think of one, right off the top. So whoever asked that question, please take my email address and shoot me an email, and I'll be more than happy to connect with you offline for that one.
The next question is, do you have any suggestions on how to best engage, motivate staff to achieve market growth who seems consistently prone to producing just enough to get by? Some might say low producers, but HR and others are enamored with trying to make everyone happy in a platonic world of mediocrity.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm not a big, I think you have to inspire your people, right? You inspire your people, but it's hard to motivate someone who's not motivated, right? And I feel like you have certain groups in sales, right? You have your high achievers, you have your mediocre achievers, you have your people who want to do better but may need a little help along the way, and those are the people that you really want to coach. And then you have your habitual underperformers, right? I have no tolerance for habitual underperformers, and people that have no motivation. However, for someone that's motivated, and they want to do better, and they just may need a little help along the way. I just think, when you look at a sales team and you look at who you're spending your time with, um, you don't necessarily need to spend a lot of your time with your super high achievers, right? Because they're going to go out, they're going to get it done, they're going to make it happen. And I'm not a big advocate of spending time with your habitual underperformers, especially um, when the motivation is low. And I would spend a majority of my time with representatives who may have inconsistent sales, but they have the ambition to be a great sales rep, right? And not only do I spend my time with them, I allow my high achievers to spend time with them as well, right? Because a lot of the times learning and working with your peers is super beneficial, because you guys are doing the same jobs, and you have one rep in one territory who could share some of the successes that they're having and what has made them successful with someone who may need a little help along the way. But I don't know about the motivation part, right? Um, I don't know if you could motivate someone to want to be great, or that to want to be better. It's either in you or it's not. I'm not a big fan of motivating, but I am a fan of inspiring.
The next question is, what is your devices for a new startup restaurant what are your advices for a new startup restaurant from marketing standpoint of view? I understand that it is out of from your experience in the medical products, but general knowledge will be good.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you think about the upstream marketing, right? You look at, I would assume, for a restaurant, again, I have no experience with a restaurant, is what what are the market demographics that where you're looking to place your restaurant, right? That's going to be super important. Access to your restaurant, like these are all upstream marketing things that go into it before you decide that this is the restaurant you're going to open in, and this is going to be your location. um so I think identifying those things, and then looking at um you know what kind of restaurant, who's your target audience, who are you catering to, and a lot of that probably also will be determined in your upstream marketing phase. So looking at those things, who you're catering to, where your restaurant's going to be, what the market looks like. Is it an oversaturated market? Like, if you know you want to be a Mexican restaurant, if you look at an area where there's a ton of Mexican restaurants, that's probably not a good idea, right? So you got to think about those things as you go into a business venture, and what the market looks like, who you're targeting, what's going to be your sales strategy. And I think those are just super important.
The next question is, how do you create a new market for for a need of people that don't understand? In my case, we are trying to change Western communities thinking on their sources.
Okay, what was the first part of that question, Ty? I'm sorry.
How do you create a new market for a need that people have but don't understand?
Oh, well, that goes back to a part of the presentation that we had earlier, is um, you know, if they don't know that they have the need, then it's up to you as the company to let them to create that need for them, right? To um and that kind of goes back to part of what we talked about was, what's the story behind it, right? Like, what's the story of why they need it, right? And if they truly need it, then they'll understand. But it's up to you to sell the story of why um they need whatever the product or service is that you're referring to. um so I just think that would be super important in that aspect.
The next question is, can you give examples of how you develop cell processes? What are the elements, components, pieces?
Yeah, so my sales processes are based on a lot of what we discussed today, right? That's kind of our strategy. When again, I've had the opportunity to take over teams that were significantly underperforming. And, there were always a couple of things that I looked at when I came into a situation where we needed to get things turned around. Is like, what is the current market doing? What's the current market potential? Where are we lacking? What has the competition been up to in my market? Where do we stack up against the competition? Who are our key users? Who are our competitive users? Right. So those are all things that you want to assess going into a market, and understanding, you have to understand the market and what's going on. And, once we can identify some of those things, the processes that I like to put together is, we tackle the low hanging fruit first, like who's currently using our product, right? We need to shore up that business and make sure that we have it solidified. And once we do, secondly, now we're in expansion mode. So now we're going after our competitors, and we need to figure out why they're using the competitors, um, and how we can sell against that, and we identify needs. So we identify the needs of our customers, and from there, we can build our sales process, once we know their needs, and we can tailor everything around that.
And we have two more questions.
Okay.
The next one is, are you using AI to assist with the sales process?
We do not use AI yet. Not to help with the sales process. I will say, all right, so it's not necessarily AI, because it doesn't make changes, but we're using some version of AI with our new programming platform, right? But it has nothing. Well, it is a part of sales, because we use it to demo our products to our customers, and that's just on the technology side. It's a bunch of brain talk, brain surgery talk, and post-operative programming stuff that we have a system that can, like, once our patients have had surgery, you can see the leads in the anatomy in the brain, and we use we merge MRIs and CAT scans to get that patient's 3D version of their brain, their actual brain, with the leads in the brain, right? So from there, we just have like an AI-esque platform, that can show the clinicians, based on where the leads are in the anatomy in the brain. All you have to do is hit a button, and our system would automatically create a program to stimulate that patient and avoid structures of the brain that you don't want stimulated, because it has side effects. So outside of that, like, that's kind of the only AI that we use. And we use that on the sales side to show our physicians the capabilities of our product.
The next question is, where do you find a customer base for a startup company?
Where do you find a customer base for a startup company? I mean, I think that all has to be done in the upstream part, right? So before you start to try to sell your product again, you need to know, what does the market look like? Who you're selling to, what are the demographics? Again, who's your target? Who's your target audience? And again, I just think collecting all that data in the upstream stage is so important, because it's going to give you all the information and intel you need, to figure out where you should start your business.
And then we have one more question. How much does retention play a role in sustaining and scaling your business?
Super important. Um, I'm assuming you're talking about customer retention or employee retention, but I feel like they're both equally important, right? You know, keeping your people on your team, keeping your sales team engaged and happy and motivated and inspired, um, speaks volumes. I don't think you can put a price tag on that, right? And again, part of that, when you're when you're building a sales team, it's so important that you hire the right people. And you're going to miss, right? You're going to miss. Everyone does. I don't care how good of an interviewer you are or how good you are at reading resumes. You're going to miss on some of those, and you're going to hire bad people. The problem is, one of the things you have to make sure is that you don't let the bad apple spoil the bunch. And if you hire someone who's just not a good fit for your team, then you have to find a way to move that person out. If not, it's like a cancer. It's going to spread, right? And they're going to negatively impact the rest of your team. If we're talking about customer retention, that's the relationship part, right? You're consistently providing that customer with value. You show them their importance, what they mean to you and your business, whoever that customer is, whatever your product or service that you're selling. um, you know, I just had this talk with one of my reps is that, you know, I don't care what you're selling or what kind of business you're in, for the most part, it cannot be transactional, right? You have to have, it's mandatory that you have relationships with your customers, whoever they are. And I just think that's so important to the success of a business, is the relationship aspect of it. And once you get, if it's all transactional, especially with your customers, it's going to be so easy for the competition to come in and convert that customer away from you to them, right? However, if there's a personal attachment to it, it's much harder for them than to leave your company and go with a competitor.
Hey, Thomas and group, I just wanted to thank you from Small Business Development at Temple and the Fox School of Business, which you graduated with your MBA, how much we appreciate the dialogue and the information you provided. And I'm so happy you ended on talking about relationships. And I know how you feel about those. And I can tell you, personally, you're a friend of mine, and I feel, very, very appreciative of that. And but the relationship and the information you just provided to these entrepreneurs and everyone who listened was greatly appreciated. We don't want to hold you over your time, Thomas. I think you have other stuff to do the rest of the day. So with that, Taya, if you want to wrap it up and talk about next week's webinars, please feel free. Thomas, we do appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. Again, I'm humbled that Mr. Tucker asked me to speak. And again, thank you guys all for allowing me to join your call. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Thomas, for presenting. Next week, we will be doing a webinar on the overview of tariffs for small businesses. If you're interested, you can visit our website, or I just posted the link in the chat. A follow-up email will be sent with the recording to this presentation. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Thomas. Has his email listed on the screen, as well as you can reach out to us at sbdc@temple.edu. And we hope to see you next week. Enjoy the rest of your day.